Matt, I'll start with you, just because you've been around quite a long time. As we move forward, is there anything that you as a researcher believe we really need to, we've identified emissions from fracking, but is there anything else that you, through your view, we should be in front of in the next year to 18 months? I'll start with Matt, then I'll go to Mike, then to Dave.
Sure. I mean, wow, that's a big question. What I can say, this clearly wasn't pre-planned, so I don't have an answer. We do some work, kind of a little more and more with EPA, and as we're, especially with the development of some of the diagnostics we're working on. And so we've been attending AWMA meetings the past couple of years, and having the fortune to see a lot of different presentations. And off the top of my head, what seems to be one of the biggest issues there is fugitive emissions. It's all fugitive emissions, but it's fence line emissions and fence line monitoring. Those are things, we're doing some work on that ourselves, but off the top of my head, those are really some of the big challenges stateside, just because of the way the regulatory framework works. But I think we can see some spillover. You see things like CCAC with such a heavy focus on methane and black carbon. You can only expect that we're going to see those things come up in Canada more and more as issues. That's, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks for that, Matt. And now pass it over to Mike and same question.
I concur with Matt, and as I said during my presentation, the one thing I would encourage that we try to achieve over the next year to 18 months and onward is to try to position ourselves more in terms of what's happening internationally, because what's happening internationally is converging towards where we are and have been for a long time technically. I think something we need to be aware of, though, is that the technical convergence isn't the only thing. On the technical side, we have the ability to lead and to benefit, as I shared. But there are policies and regulations and objectives that are rapidly evolving in those jurisdictions that are catching up to where we are now with respect to things like heavy oil and unconventional gas. We've occupied in the areas of things like fugitive emissions or flaring a position of global leadership for some time, but I think it's also fair to say that we've perhaps overlooked that leadership is getting old or is aging, and we've got an opportunity to stay current and stay at the pointy end of the spear and continue to be leaders. We also have an opportunity, based upon the types of resources and resolve that these other jurisdictions have, to very rapidly fall behind. With respect to things like fugitive emissions, heavy oil in particular, doesn't matter where we go in the globe, that's the resource of the future on the fluid side. And the degree to which it's analogous to the Lloydminster area, and I would again cite the study that Matt did, and with Dave's help and others, and that was published some time ago. And it raised some eyebrows when it came up. When you look at a 3 to 6 megaton opportunity within a 150 kilometer radius of a semicircle, that's the Alberta side of the Lloydminster area, the things that we've learned from that are being observed by other jurisdictions. And other jurisdictions are in the process of doing greenfield development to extract resources that are analogous to those in Lloydminster. But they're going to have greenfield development and optimization that is going to very quickly, has the potential to make our operations in the Lloyd area look like they're very antiquated, and we're getting set up to be criticized again, the same way we've been criticized about oil sands and whatnot. So I just think it's important for us to keep our finger on the pulse of where we are internationally, the degree to which we're being looked at internationally, the degree to which we have leadership opportunities, but also proactively, as we've done over the last decade, be aware of what might really bite us in the rear end in a short period of time if we're not managing it.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And Dave, where do you see us Where do we need to go, or what are we overlooking?
I'm not sure there's any particular gaps in the near term in terms of what we're doing, but I agree that the focus needs to be on developing a better understanding of some of the unconventional production and even processing methods that are being proposed now. And it seems to come out in a lot of the hearings I've been involved in that people are wanting to have a deeper understanding of a lot of the trace constituents of some of these emission streams, a lot more concern about odors, and there's in general a lack of data to support a cleaner, a proper understanding of those types of issues. So, I mean, a lot of the work we're currently doing now is trying to address some of those things, but I think there's more opportunity to address those information needs and even feed into the kind of information that designers need to be able to properly design controls for these types of sources and what has been successful and what hasn't been successful and what's working. On a longer term scale, one of the things I see in a lot of other countries, particularly where their resources are in decline, is there's an awful lot more focus on energy efficiency. And I don't feel like we've got to that same level here, certainly when you compare what we do to what's going on in Europe and even places like New Zealand, where they're net importers and they're paying a premium for the energy they bring in. They're doing a lot of innovative things. They're doing a lot of things that would be good to be doing here as well.